Welcome back to Sports Class with Dr. K. It's February, and that can mean only one thing. Duke is about to whip up on North Carolina. And then North Carolina is going to beat Duke. Then Duke will beat North Carolina. Well, you get the point. These two basketball teams are about to face off again in college basketball's greatest rivalry. Now, these two teams have attracted a lot of attention this season, but for all the wrong reasons. North Carolina has been an absolute disaster. They're having one of their worst seasons ever. Meantime, Duke has been steadily in the top 5 or top 10 all season long. But this is the kind of rivalry where they say you throw the records out the window. Would anyone be shocked if North Carolina finds a way to beat Duke? I certainly wouldn't. So look, these two teams are fixing to play again, so let me take this lesson to talk about this great college basketball rivalry, UNC Duke. Now this rivalry goes back not just 1 century, but 2 centuries. More than 200 years ago, the rivalry between Duke and North Carolina was born. That's back when George Washington was president in 1790. There were 2 prominent families in North Carolina, the Mangums and the Dukes. They got into a spat. It's kind of complicated, but it involved their children and a child born out of wedlock. These 2 close families then grew apart, and the rivalry grew more bitter over the years. This was back before the universities were even founded. Of course, the Dukes became connected with Duke University down the road, and the Mangums became close supporters of the University of North Carolina. What else happened in 1790, you wonder? Well, all kinds of important things related to the founding of the country, but Benjamin Franklin died that year in Philadelphia at the age of 84. So these schools were rivals going back hundreds of years, but the basketball rivalry itself was slow to take shape. Early in the 20th century, football was really the big sport on college campuses. And North Carolina viewed their biggest rival not as Duke, but as NC State. Nonetheless, the basketball rivalry did begin to take shape. The first game between these two was almost exactly 100 years ago, January 24th, 1920. And about 1,000 people came to watch it. But even at that time, spectators said it was a bitter game. The rivalry only grew from there. So the rivalry grew more bitter as the years went by. Duke added fuel to the fire when they refused to play North Carolina and accused the Tar Heels of playing professional players in a number of sports, not just basketball. And most observers pinned the 1929 game as the real turning point in this rivalry. In that game, many players fouled out, and it was a bitter, brutal game. After that, the basketball rivalry was born for sure. What else happened in 1929, you wonder? The St. Valentine's Day Massacre, when 7 members of Bugs Moran's gang were murdered, ostensibly by members of Al Capone's gang. In the 1950s, this rivalry swung back and forth, both teams having their way with the other for stretches of years. Duke won 8 straight games, and then later in the decade, North Carolina won 7 straight games, including the national championship in 1957. In 1980, the Blue Devils added, you guessed it, Mike Krzyzewski, the famous coach, and that added real fuel to this rivalry. Krzyzewski targeted his program against North Carolina and their famous coach, Dean Smith. And so in the 80s and 90s, this rivalry really picked up steam. North Carolina won the national title in 1982 and 1993. And Duke won the championship in 1991 and 92. So both of these programs were at the top of the national standings. When the Tar Heels added Roy Williams as their coach in 2003, we launched into another phase of this rivalry, and both programs have contended for Final Fours and national championships really throughout that period. The 2 teams have combined to win the ACC title in 38 of the last 65 years, and they've made 36 Final Four appearances over that span. Over the long haul, the edge in this rivalry goes to the Tar Heels, who lead the overall standings with 133 wins to Duke's 105. They have 5 national titles compared with Duke's 4, and they have 36 ACC titles compared to Duke's 22. Some of North Carolina's NBA greats include Michael Jordan, probably the greatest of all time, James Worthy, and Sam Perkins. Duke is best known for producing a string of the most hated players in college basketball, including Bobby Hurley, J.J. Redick, and the most hated probably of all time, Christian Laettner. So, in the grand scheme of things, Carolina has had the edge, but more recently it's been Duke that's been the better program. So, again, this is one of those rivalries you throw the records out the window. Nobody would be shocked if North Carolina wins. But just remember, this rivalry goes back more than 200 years. There you have it, the Duke-North Carolina rivalry. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.